Imagine waking up one morning and realizing everything you believed about national power was wrong. That's what happened to France in the years after World War II. A nation with 1,000 years of history, culture, diplomacy, and global influence suddenly found itself staring at something completely unfamiliar. A superpower that could rebuild entire countries with money alone. While France struggled to repair its factories, America was building new ones faster than Europe could count. While French banks fought to keep their currency alive, the U.S. government casually wrote checks large enough to reshape the world economy. And at one unmistakable moment, during a political meeting that would reshape Europe, France finally understood the truth. America wasn't just recovering from the war. America was playing a different game entirely. This is the story of the moment France realized it. Picture France, 1945. The war is over. The Germans are gone. But victory tastes like ashes. The factories that once powered French industry, rubble. The farms that fed its people, scorched earth. The currency that symbolized French dignity, worthless on world markets. In Paris, politicians gather in dim rooms, debating how to rebuild. Their answer sounds noble, inevitable, and thoroughly European. We will rebuild ourselves the European way, through our own effort, our own ingenuity, our own pride. It's a reasonable plan. It's a dignified plan. It's also about to seem impossibly naive. Now picture something else. Somewhere across the Atlantic, America. The war never touched American soil. While European cities burned, American factories hummed. While European suns fell, American workers clocked in and clocked out. By 1945, America controlled half the world's manufacturing, the world's largest merchant fleet. New industries that Europe had never imagined. Aviation, petrochemicals, mass-produced consumer goods. American GDP? It was already climbing into the stratosphere. American soldiers came home to parades and jobs. American factories couldn't produce fast enough to meet demand. For the first time in human history, one nation had accumulated economic power on a scale the world had never witnessed. And France had no idea what that meant. Let's move to the spring of 1947. Paris, French government offices. A delegation is about to attend a crucial meeting with American officials. The French government is discussing what aid they might receive. Modest loans, perhaps. Industrial materials. Enough to get things moving again. The Americans will help us, French politicians said to one another, but we will be equals in this partnership. We are France, after all. They were about to learn something humbling. Secretary of State George Marshall stands at a podium in Harvard. He is about to announce the Marshall Plan. What he proposes will not be a loan between nations of equal standing. What he proposes will be an act of economic restructuring, so vast, so unprecedented, that it will fundamentally alter the course of European history. $13 billion. To put that in perspective, France's entire annual government revenue in 1947 was less than $3 billion. America was offering to spend more on European reconstruction than France could earn in 4 years. It was like watching a man pull out a checkbook the size of a house. The French delegation understood immediately. This was not charity. This was a statement of power so absolute that it didn't even need to announce itself. A French diplomat later described the feeling. We realized in that moment that we were no longer in a negotiation. We were being offered a choice: accept American help on American terms, or watch Europe collapse. But here's where it gets interesting. The conditions attached to the money weren't military. They weren't colonial. They were something more subtle and far more effective. The United States insisted on transparency in how the money was spent. No hidden budgets, no corruption, economic reform, open markets, less state control, more capitalist efficiency, cooperation between European nations. They had to coordinate rebuilding, not compete. Free market alignment. France would have to integrate its economy with the Western system. Anti-communist stance. A clear choice. Align with America or with the Soviet Union. In other words, accept American money, and you accept American values, American systems, American ways of organizing the world. France had a choice. Accept the plan and become economically dependent on the United States, or refuse it and watch the country starve. It wasn't really a choice at all. The moment France's government voted to accept the Marshall Plan, something shifted in the European consciousness, something that would echo for the rest of the 20th century. France wasn't being conquered by armies. France was being rebuilt by factories, and those factories belonged to America. What happened next was almost surreal from a French perspective. American ships began arriving at French ports, not warships, cargo ships. They carried raw materials the French couldn't produce, food to feed workers while they rebuilt, modern machinery that made French tools look like relics, designs, plans, technologies, entire blueprints for the future. And America didn't just send things, it sent people, American engineers, American managers, American advisors. They walked into French factories and changed everything. The way work was organized, the speed of production, the efficiency metrics, the management philosophy. French factory owners watched as Americans introduced something they'd never seen before. A vision of endless growth, infinite scaling, global ambition on a speed they couldn't fathom. Within 2 years, French industrial production had nearly tripled. Let that sink in. Nearly tripled. But it came with a cost that no one could quite articulate at first. Imagine you're a French worker in 1949. Your factory has been rebuilt. Your salary is better than it's been in a decade. Production is booming. But when you look around, you see Coca-Cola signs in French cafes, American trucks on French roads, American movies in French cinemas, American optimism infecting the air. This idea that anything is possible if you work hard and believe in efficiency and growth. For some French people, it was thrilling, modern, a glimpse into the future. For others, it felt like colonization, just without the soldiers. A prominent French intellectual said at the time, "America is not conquering Europe with weapons. It is conquering Europe with Coca-Cola and credit." He wasn't entirely wrong. But here's what French leadership understood. Even if they didn't say it out loud, they had a choice between two kinds of dependence. Dependence on America, which offered growth, technology, and hope for the future, or dependence on the Soviet Union, which offered security behind a wall of dictatorships. France chose America, and with that choice, something fundamental shifted in the Western world. Now let's talk about something that made French leaders genuinely anxious: the dollar. Before the Marshall Plan, currencies were somewhat balanced. The British pound, the French franc, the German mark. These were competing currencies in a multipolar world. But as American products flooded global markets and American loans became the engine of European recovery, something happened. The world needed dollars to buy things. The world needed dollars to trade. The world needed dollars to survive. Slowly, almost invisibly, the U.S. dollar became the default currency of the world economy. By the early 1950s, every major contract was negotiated in dollars. Every major trade route was priced in dollars. Every nation's financial health depended on maintaining a favorable exchange rate with the dollar. France's currency, the franc, still existed, but it was secondary, a supporting actor in a play written in English. A French finance minister understood what was happening and was privately devastated. We thought we were accepting a loan. We were actually accepting a new world order, and that's when something deeper crystallized in the French mind. A realization that would define the next 70 years of European history. Power had changed, fundamentally. It was no longer about armies or empires or colonial territories. That was the old game, the European game. The new game was about capital, credit, production capacity, supply chains, speed. America understood the new game. America had invented the new game, and Europe was playing catch-up. Here's what France eventually figured out, and what historians would later confirm. America didn't rebuild Europe out of altruism. America rebuilt Europe because it was strategically brilliant. Let's be honest about the motivations. Creating markets for American products. Every rebuilt European factory needed American machinery. Every European consumer, now earning decent wages, wanted American goods. France was becoming a consumer market for American companies, building allies against the Soviet Union. The Marshall Plan wasn't just economic, it was geopolitical genius. By making Europe dependent on American investment, America guaranteed European support against communism, securing global economic dominance. By positioning the dollar as the foundation of world trade, America ensured it would be the economic superpower for generations. Controlling world finance, American banks, American credit, American financial institutions became the infrastructure of the global economy. This is what separates genius from mere victory. America didn't just win the war. America used economic power to win the peace in a way that no nation had ever done before. And France, proud, ancient, dignified France, had to watch it happen and accept it, because the alternative was collapse. A French political theorist, reflecting years later, said something remarkable. We thought America was like us, a nation seeking to preserve itself. But America was building something larger, a system. And France had to choose, remain a classical nation-state or become part of something bigger. France chose bigger. And in that choice, something profound shifted. Because when you step back and look at what America did, when you really look at it, it's almost beautiful in its strategic brilliance. America didn't need to conquer Europe militarily. Military conquest is expensive, unpopular, and temporary. Instead, America offered something better: prosperity, growth, access to the world's most advanced technology and production methods, a ticket to the modern world. All it asked in return was, accept our values, use our currency, join our system, become like us. And remarkably, Europe accepted, not because it was forced to, but because when you really examined the choice, accepting American help and American systems was better than the alternatives available. This is the moment that historians point to as the birth of the modern world order, not the end of World War II, but the moment Europe realized it was living in America's world now. The year is now 2024. France is a thriving modern nation, strong economy, cultural influence, political voice in global affairs. But the echoes of that moment in 1947, the moment France understood American power, they're everywhere. Look at NATO, an American-led military alliance where Europe remains, fundamentally, dependent on American military technology and American strategic commitment. Look at the dollar. 75 years later, it's still the foundation of global trade, still the currency that defines value across the world. Look at American corporations: Apple, Google, Amazon, Meta. These aren't just companies. They're the infrastructure of modern life, operating globally with a level of power and reach that would have seemed incomprehensible to a 1940s observer. Look at international institutions: the World Bank, the IMF, built on American principles, run with American advisors, operating in the orbit of American interests. What happened in 1947 wasn't an ending. It was a beginning. It was the moment the world accepted that one nation had achieved something unprecedented: the ability to reshape the world not through military conquest, but through economic power so overwhelming that resistance became futile. But here's the thing that makes this story less tragic than it might seem. France didn't lose. France adapted. Europe didn't become American. Europe became integrated into an American-led system, and in doing so, it became richer, more powerful, and more influential than it could have become alone. The old European dream, each nation independent, competing with each other, occasionally destroying each other in wars, that dream is dead. But what replaced it isn't oppression. It's something more subtle. A system where American power is so pervasive that European nations thrive by working within it, not against it. That moment when France realized America was playing a different game, it wasn't humiliation. It was awakening. It was the moment Europe understood that the old world had ended and a new one it didn't control, but one it could thrive in, had begun. And in a strange way, France and all of Europe became stronger because of it. Not stronger than America, but stronger than it could have been, alone. Sometimes power isn't measured by independence. Sometimes it's measured by knowing when to adapt, when to accept help, and how to thrive within systems you didn't create. That's the real story of the moment France realized America was playing a different game. It was the moment the world changed, not with weapons or declarations, but with checks written so large they reshaped nations, with machines so advanced they made the old world obsolete, with a vision of the future so compelling that people chose to become part of it. That's the power that changed history, not conquest, but creation